Well, this webinar from the Open Group. We can see we are talking about ArchiMate today. We have a very good panel of speakers today. And before I hand over to our lead speaker, Sonia Gonzalez, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping issues to today's event moving forward smoothly. First, with regards to questions, please do ask questions. That's one of the main objectives of bringing these webinars to you. If you'd like to ask a question directly to the panel, and the best way to do that is to write your questions into the text QA facility. Question in there, can I ask you to address it to all participants? That way everyone gets to see all the questions that are being asked. Our intention is to answer many questions today at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to simply make a comment or share a thought with a fellow attendee, then the best way to do that is to use the text chat facility. Now, this is being fully recorded, so if for any reason you have to leave early or experience any local technical difficulties, and I know sometimes audio around the globe can be problematical, everyone who's registered for today's event will get an email with the appropriate link where they can access the full recording, and that will be sent out tomorrow. So if you're ready, can I ask you to start today's presentation?
Yeah, thank you. We're going to start the webinar now. Thank you very much to all the attendees that we have today. And our subject today is promoting enterprise architecture models, knowledge interchange, and business value using ArchiMate. And for that, we are going to have a group of speakers, and it's me. I'm Sonia Gonzalez from the Open Group. I'm the ArchiMate Forum Director, and it's a pleasure for me to be here today to share this information with you. Also having Phil Beavier from Archie, Aaron Baker for Business Design, Alan Brunette from Corso, who were part of the team that work in the standard, and also Andrew USC, which is our Director of Standard for the Open Group. So all of us wanted to welcome you to this event. And for today, first we're going to explain why we consider having this Exchange file format is important for the community and for ArchiMate. Then a little bit about business value perspective. Why is this standard delivering value, and who are the main stakeholders that will receive this value? Then we want to talk about a brief technical overview on the format, and for that, the technical experts that are actually the ones that have worked in this standard development will deliver an explanation on that. Also, we will have the current tools supporting the Exchange file format, that in this case are Corso, Business Design, and Archie. So the three representatives will be sharing their experiences with us about this. Then we're going to have a demo about how the Exchange works from the different tools, future plans for the format and the actual state of the standard, and some final conclusions. At the end, we are having a questions and answer session. It is important to have a Exchange file format for the ArchiMate standard. For that, it is important to go a little bit of background in here. First, before having this format, this standard, ArchiMate models were created in different tools and in different formats. Even though all of them were compatible and compliant with ArchiMate, they were made in different formats and different languages, so that's why they were locked in just one tool, and it was not easy to share all that content. The existence of different formats was an issue for consultants and vendors, since their customers had difficulties sharing information through the different models, and also in some cases migrating from one tool to another. It was a real issue for the end users if they have to redraw that again with the lack of consistency on the information, and also having to spend more money, time, and effort, and having to do all the reviewing everything again. So the relevance about having this standard, because it preserves user investment in development of the ArchiMate models, and on the other hand, it frees the model from being just locked in one tool, so we can be sure that if all the different models are compliant with ArchiMate, now they can also be shared in a consistent consistent way, and between the different tools that are actually using the standard. And like we said at the beginning, it's saving money and also it's delivering the confidence that the information that we are sharing is really being representative and being accurate. Business value perspective, I think like the business value is not only for modelers or technical people, because again, what we do when we do enterprise architecture is to deliver a landscape of our organization in order to the leaders to take the final key decisions that are related with business and strategy. So one of the main advantages is that we are supporting interoperability and information exchange between organizational areas, vendor, different sectors, different vertical, etc., in a very consistent way, and making sure that are being conformant with the standard. If we go into end users and decision makers, for example, the CEOs and other key stakeholders into organization, for them having the possibility of interchange model will allow them to have better information provided for strategic and business stakeholder decisions. So, for example, in this moment, we know that the pressures on the market are forcing us to have everything together. We have our business is now surrendered by another ones, so we have a whole value change in which we have to be interacting with our customers, with other business partners, with alliances, with another organizational bodies. So for this, it's really key to have a way to interchange these different architectural descriptions and being able to have a unified view about all this. Architects and designers, they're also able now to interchange with colleagues in another related organization and share the knowledge. And that way we are also supporting having a real networking automation and a real knowledge base of models, a real model repository that is now more global. And like we said also at the beginning, this issue have also operational advantage in the sense that we are able to migrate between different tools with corresponding tape and money savings. For vendors, now they share information with business partners and other alliances easier, so they can build this value change for the final customer. And for example, if you have a large project in which there are 3 or 4 vendors involved, so it's not an issue anymore if every vendor or every part of the team will deliver a specific part of the models, because at the end, all the information will go into a common repository. It's also easier for customers to migrate from one tool to the other, and to also perform some benchmarking between tools and also to test for conformance. We're actually working with final users, and one of the key issues is to how to define and compose a repository in which they will have different models mixed together. So this is also in consultants work easier with end users and explaining them that even though they will have, for example, one tool and then use another one for another part of the organization, it's not going to be an issue anymore, because at the end everything will go into a single repository. And this is also very good for trainers, because it's a good way to explain and teach about interoperability and cooperation, and also to explain their students how the different tools that are ArchiMate certified are working together and collaborating in this new interchange standard. This is the first part about the business value. Like Simon explained, if we have some specific questions, we can just have them at the end of the session. Now we're going to give the control to Phil, that is going to deliver a brief technical overview about the format.
Okay. And hello to everyone who's listening in. Yeah, I'm Phil Beauvoir, and I work on Archie, the open source ArchiMate tool. And I've just been asked to represent the other people on the project who have worked at the technical level, bringing the ArchiMate Exchange format. I can't see the slides at the moment, Sonia. Have I the slide?
I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's okay.
See them? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been working for a little while together between various vendors and the Open Group to work on the ArchiMate Exchange file format. As Sonia says, there's something that's really quite important to add value to end users and tool vendors and customers. The design features that we decided on at the early stages were the bullet points that you see in the slide here. We decided that the portability was an important issue. For importing and exporting a model file, it should be software and hardware platform independent, and then there's completeness. So it'd be possible to represent a model file accurately when moving between tools, and to represent the concepts and relationships as defined in ArchiMate 2.1 specification and graphical representations, i.e. the diagrams. Robustness to errors, so it'd be possible to detect at an early stage when importing and exporting between tools. And obviously, there'd be interchangeability, so that any tool conforming to the standard will be capable of reading and writing all conforming model files. And flexibility in future extensions to the ArchiMate language and any possible specific additions should be accommodated for without compromising the robustness, portability of the exchange of the standard model files. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So the exchange file format should be able to convey from one tool to another the basic ArchiMate concepts, relationships, attributes, objects, and diagrammatic information. So we have all of the ArchiMate concepts, things like business actor, application, technology concepts. Those need to be exchanged, obviously, at level. We need the relationships, the ArchiMate relationships between those objects. That information needs to be exchanged, as well as diagrammatic information. Now, these things are going to be more optional than others, and some things are going to be extremely mandatory in what we exchange. So we do need, at the very least, to exchange model information relating to the concepts, the relationships. If we can get diagrams as well, which I'll come to in a minute, then we're on to a win-win situation. I'm saying what the file format is not at this stage. The Exchange file format is not intended as a native file format. Same way that you might find that XMI is used to represent UML, we are not using that kind of notation, that kind of representation, because there are too many problems around defining the mate specification. There are a lot of loose ends, there are a lot of fuzzy areas with ArchiMate, and in order to create a native file format for ArchiMate, then we have to, for example, look at things like XMI and MOF and that kind of stuff. So we made the task for ourselves to concentrate on exchanging file format information between tools. And the tools, therefore, have to be ArchiMate aware, so that there's no implicit meta model in the exchange file. When you receive a file as a tool, you must know what those ArchiMate concepts are already. You must know what those ArchiMate relationships are in order to make sense of the ArchiMate exchange file that you're receiving. Okay, to the next slide, please. Thank you. So going back to the requirements for the Exchange file format, as I said earlier, it should be extensible to allow for possible very specific things. Obviously, language is going to change. There will obviously be future versions of ArchiMate. We need to keep that in mind, and we obviously need to get enough information to exchange a model usefully between tools and diagrams. Next slide, please. Okay. So carrying on with the requirements, the first requirement, we start off with simple things like shall an identifier for the version of the ArchiMate language supported. Okay, so this is, in our case, is 2.1. And then once we've established that, we know that there are a finite number of ArchiMate concepts and relations that we can change. And it shall include metadata about the instance of the model being exchanged, metadata being things like purpose of the author of the ArchiMate model, those kind of things. And about additional textual use, so we need to support exchange of documentation, and documentation applies to the model itself and also to the aggregate parts of the concepts and relationship. And also to support optional localization, because not everyone's speaking one language. So when we see diagrams with labels and documentations and properties and attributes, those need to be in more than one international language. So we decided that we needed to support that as well. Next slide, please. So we established that we're not going to come up with an XMI type of definitive representation of an ArchiMate model because there's problems inherent in that. So we're actually conveying information from A to B. We're packaging the information to get it out from one tool to another tool, or from that tool to yet another tool. So the easiest way to do this is to express the model, or present the model rather, in XML by a schema, or an XSD schema, to validate the well-formedness of the XML. So there's no representation of a meta model, of a meta model per se in the XML. That's implicit in the structure of the XML document. So we checked out trying a few other things. One thing that we did try was OW, which is the web ontology language. That proved somewhat problematic in presenting things like diagrams and colors and that. Also, some were finding problems in actually implementing in our tools with the ability of OWL libraries. So we went with XML, and it was something that we could work with quickly, and it's documented. There are many plugins and tools available for vendors to use, and it's proven for other exchange and interoperability file formats, and allows quicker progress all around. And you can incorporate XML standards such as Dublin Core metadata, something that you could add onto your model to use it to describe it, so that you could add additional information about the model, so that if you had models in a repository, you might search on tags or authors or rights, that kind of stuff. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what we're looking at here is actually a kind of UML model of the implementation that we put in place. That we've got the white box at the top, which is the ArchiMate model, is the container for other things like metadata, elements, relationships, properties, and attributes. That's another thing that we include in the file format, so that you can add other other attributes in ArchiMate language or properties to all of the concepts. These are additional things that add to the XML. So I'm running out of time now. So I've given you a bit of an overview of the technical aspects of the ArchiMate Exchange file. So if you've got any questions afterwards, I'm happy to take them, as I'm sure my colleagues are as well. So I'm going to hand back to Andrew, I think.
Yes, Phil. Andrew Joseph here from the Open Group. Just a little update on where we are with where you can get hold of the standard. The standard was approved by the group in July, and per August you can download it from the URL shown here. You can register for an Open Group Web ID if you haven't already got one. Standard itself, there are a number of supporting items, such as documentation and a number of sample models. There's also an online resource site which we're seeing here, so you can go to www.opengroup.org/xsd/ArchiMate, and as well as containing links to the standard, that contains a link to an implementer's guide and the queue. So we've actually put together a guide to actually help other suppliers might be thinking of implementing the format to explain some sort of best ways to do that. Next slide, please. It's also has now started doing is adding models to its publications where applicable. So here you will see for this white paper, which is about the TOGAF framework, we ArchiMate using the TOGAF framework with the ArchiMate modeling language. We have some ArchiMate examples within that paper. So now we actually also publish the ArchiMate model exchange file with that. And there's a couple of different models and case studies that we've published using that. So you can download the ArchiSurance and the actual case study. Last, actually starting to see that the uses of the XML format, and here's an example that was contributed to us by Norway, and they've been using they've actually generate information about models using an XSLT style sheet. So this is actually something that's very simple to do. So we're actually starting to see these spin-off ideas about how you can use the Exchange file format. I think we've also seen another paper written by a Dutch company about how they're importing the XML models into a database and be able to do searches about relations and so on. So it's a flexible format and it's very easy to understand and use. Sonia at this point.
Okay, we have delivered an overview about the standard and about the advantage of using the standard and the different resources that we can have in the Open Group page. We are going to also go about the current tools that are supported the Exchange file format, and for that, we are going to ask the three representatives of the companies to talk a little bit about their experiences while delivering this the standard format.
My name is Harm Bakker from BizDesign. With my colleague Frans Vase, we worked on defining the ArchiMate Exchange file format. And we have implemented it in BizDesign Architect in release 4.7, which was released this summer 2015. It using our BizDesign scripting language, which makes it easy to extend later on. Should new versions of the ArchiMate language here, for example, can be catered for quite easily by extending export and import script. So scripts, one for importing models and one for export models. The benefit of using the Exchange file format is, of course, that we rely on one well-defined format for importing and exporting models, of which tool they come from. And as one of the leading parties in the Open Group's ArchiMate standard, we adhere to the open exchange of architectural models between tools. And as a plus for us as a tool vendor, it's also good that we don't have to write that many import scripts for each tool we know of. So we simply rely on other tool vendors also implement the same exchange format. And as a plus, also BizDesign Architect supports multiple modeling languages such as English, Dutch, French, and German and Spanish. Can also be exchanged using the Exchange format. Back to
Hi everybody, my name's Alan Burnett from Corso. Just briefly about us, we provide tooling, hosting services to support EA and more specifically ArchiMate. About years ago, we built a plugin to System Architect to support ArchiMate, and actually we've now got a web platform as that as well. Back in the summer, we implemented the exchange mechanism to that plugin. You can access that as a simple menu item for both export and import, and you can also choose which elements you want to bring in or export at that point as well. And that's the key driver was to enable the exchange of models has been decided in this presentation, because we do recognise that when we're on site or in engagements, there could be multiple tools and partners involved. So if the tool of choice is Corso or there are multiple tools on site, then we can focus more on business outcomes rather than get hung up on integration. So we're very happy to support this exchange program. And if you want to know any more about us, then obviously you can contact us. Thanks. It's Phil.
Okay.
Yeah. So as far as she's concerned, on a pluggable framework, the Eclipse framework. So it was relatively easy to implement the exchange format within Archie to import model representations in XML using a JSON plugin and some handcrafted code. So Archie 3.3, which is the current version of Archie, supports the Open Group's ArchiMate Exchange file format. Download Archie. It's there in the file menu. You can work with model. You can the export the Open Group Exchange format option to export a model in the XML file format, or you can import one as well. Under the hood, there's some validation going on against the schema, so Archie will validate any XML instance against the XSD schema and tell you if there's something wrong with which there is something wrong with it between the tools that we've been testing. But should a tool incorrectly implement the exchange format and create an exchange file format, then Archie will shout at you and tell you that there's something wrong and go back to the person to fix it. So yeah, it's all there in Archie. It was thanks to the Open Group. They sponsored the development of the Archie for my work on the exchange format. So a big shout out to them. Thank you for that. And that's done.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Harm. So we are going a little bit about the demo of the model exchange, and for that we have a set of slides in which, again, the different vendors will go over the different steps and will deliver an explanation about how the Interchange works in real time with the tools.
This is the file as it is being exported from BizDesign Architect. In this case, we started with BizDesign Architect doing the first export. And what you see here, after you have run the script from within BizDesign Architect, you see the results, the XML result. And what you can't see is that all of the objects and relations and the graphical information is in the XML file. On the screen is also that internet information, which we support, like English, Dutch, French, etc., are also exported in this in XML format. And we have the demo by means of a site that show you how the export that starts with an architect on this screen. We export a file just so in the model browser on the left-hand side of the screen, and then the export script, which is quite easy. And in this view, you see some details that we changed in this model. So we an object, a color, one object with some thick lines, and one object with some gray text, and they're all there to illustrate that all of graphical information also gets accurate and imported in the other tools. So continue to the following tool.
Okay, thanks, Harm. So Harm said, yeah, in BizDesign Architect, you can export the model to the Exchange format, which Harm and France did. And then I took that XML and imported it straight to Archie. And looking at it, I think it looks pretty much the same as what we were seeing in BizDesign Architect, except for a few things, which should point out. Not every tool implements every graphical feature. I think there's a thick line missing, maybe because one tool does not implement line thicknesses, or another tool might not implement things like alpha shade or shading, that kind of thing. One thing I had to do when I imported it was I had to make some slight adjustments to the connections, and this is because Archie implements connections different to how BizDesign Architect implements it. So it's something to be aware of, that when it comes to diagrams, there is going to be loss. So there could possibly be a loss, I should say, somewhere, because of the way that the tool might implement its graphical representation. Okay, so hand over. Also,
yeah, so we did a similar exercise here where we took the model from BizDesign. And from an importer perspective, we can import file. It's very simple. Actually, can choose all or part of that model that would be imported, so we don't have to take everything. That's one advantage. In terms of the views, they're mapped to the relevant diagram tool, and all the objects are mapped to their relevant definitions with their associations. Graphically, is that we've managed to maintain because the bolding and the lighter text. So, most of this, as Phil said earlier, you do have to around the fact that different tools handle different things in different ways. So, some of the line routing will be from Architect because we can manage the bend points, but actually the start and end points do depend on the tools they come from. So made an adjustment for that, but as you hear, it's pretty much a replication of that. I think I've also got the next slide as well. Slide. So go to the next slide. So now we've come through the process of into BizDesign, into Archie, and then into System Architect. So pretty much held all the information again. Also, the bolding of the bodies has not been brought through, so I guess that's the hop that we saw through there, and we can see some of the indirectionships we have in as red lines in the tool, so that's maintained. So there's maybe a little bit of time to do that, but definitely we've got structure. So all of the model information is maintained. There might be some symbol, some differences in the symbol here, but pretty close as you can see.
Okay, back to Archie. And so what we're seeing is a bit like Chinese whispers. We're seeing the BizDesign import from Corso imported back into. No, is this? I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, sorry. You know what happened?
It's just Chinese whispers here.
Yeah, it looked so close to Archie, I thought it was Archie. See, this is the Exchange format.
Yeah, this is a good example. What we see here is the core sort of Architect and re-imported into BizDesign Architect again. What you see here is some things. Of course, is that graphical information is not imported or such. You see data text and the red symbol, that's okay, but the attachment points of the lines are not transferred now. We need some post-processing to make this model look like it did when it was exported. The missing thing here is that the labels, the names on the relation lines, they are as well here. So that's just an illustration of the point that not all of the graphical information gets transferred, but most of it is transferred quite good. So on to
Harm. I generally thought that was Archie there for a moment there. I put our glasses back on now, and yes, back to Archie. So resuming our program, this is imported from Corso, who had previously imported from BizDesign. Okay, lost a little bit there, lost some, as Harm said, lost some of the labels on the on connections. So, but fundamentally, what we have exchanged, we always exchange the semantic elements, the model itself, the elements and relationships. Of course, something to remember, this is version 1.0, and some improvements we could possibly make, and this is probably something that could be looked at in future versions. But as you can see, between the three tools, between BizDesign Architect, between Corso's tool, and between the Archie tool, we're getting, a very good 95% intake of exchange here.
Thank you very much for the demos. Andrew, I think it's on to you.
I thought to this one, so I'd skip through this one again. This one slide. Talk a little bit about our future plans. So as we're looking as we move toward the future, looking at mandating the support for Exchange file format as part of the certification program. So what that would mean would be that all ArchiMate certified tools would be required to support the format. So we're looking at when we can bring that in. Obviously, some testing that we want to introduce to that. And we're also investigating exchange of incremental updates from, so that's instead of in a whole model, it might be that just changes. You could send changes across to another tool. That's slightly more complicated, and so we'll have to think about. We'll obviously be also supporting future versions of the ArchiMate standard as they are. The thing is, we're looking to have more suppliers supporting the standard. So those sort of future plans that we're currently thinking of. So back on you at this point for the wrap up.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you also our three vendors representative for the demo. And making a little bit wrapping up, just we can go to questions and answers. As we know, right now we have to face a lot of competitive markets that are demanding for the real and truly boundaryless information flow between organizations. So in this sense, information interchange becomes a key issue for different organizations, no matter in which sector or vertical they are. And also related with that, we have now architectural descriptions that can deliver and should deliver organizational overview and value and improve decision making. But for that, it's important to deliver a holistic assessment on that. And we can only accomplish that if we integrate all these different models through the whole value chain. In this context, and we see that e-model interchange become critical to deliver this integrated view through different organizations, different vertical sectors, and different types of organizations between different tools. And for that, the ArchiMate Exchange file format, it's delivering this, it's supporting this, and it's a efficient and a good way and precise way to make the interchange, like we could observe in the demo. Practically, the model was looking exactly the same with a few differences between the two, which is saving a lot of money and efforts between different organizations and vendors. Also, we know that the industry as a whole can obtain huge benefits through the application of this ArchiMate model exchange file format, because now knowledge can be shared, vendors can work better together, can cooperate, and can improve their offers to the market, and also pursue their alliances and deliver better services to the final users or end users that can actually start sharing information in a more efficient way. With a growing discipline and standards like ArchiMate can support it better if we now have vendors and implementers and consultants that can talk to each other in a more consistent and easier way, and we can facilitate, for example, like we saw in the demo, a model being migrated from business design and then to Corso and then to Archie in a continuously way, and keeping the information and also keeping all the conformance with the standard, which is delivering a lot of value to the industry as a whole. And finally, we know that we as Open Group, we support open standards that will deliver value to the community, and for that, the ArchiMate Exchange file format, which is an Open Group standard, is supporting all these key issues, and it's also promoting a better networking among the different communities and end users, vendor, consultants, and trainers. So that's the wrapping up that we are making about the standard, and we really hope that this content has been valuable. And now we have come to the point of some questions and answers. Like Simon explaining at the beginning, the process was to write down your questions in the dialogue, and then we will ask Simon again to start reading some of those questions, and we will try to deliver the proper answers as a group.
That's Sonia, and thank you, panel, for that presentation explanation. We do have a few questions in. First of all, a question from Hans asking, does ARIS also support the Exchange file format?
I'll take that one if you want. I think the answer is we don't know at this time. The only tools that we are aware of are the three that evolved from the start. Obviously, we've got the information out there to help implementers, and we're more than work with other tools suppliers to get them to that, and we'd invite them to come and participate with us in doing. We have a sort of an interoperability testing area that between the various tool suppliers where we do this exchange of models. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you for that. A question from Rafi asking, how about security in model exchange? I think you did touch on this, but would anyone like just to clarify a little bit more about the security? Who would like on about security in models exchange?
Well, not an expert on it, but the thing that occurs to me when thinking of that question is depends on the context. I come from an open source background, so for me, it's not an issue. People want to share models to learn. In-house, I suppose it depends what you're doing. I think it may be an issue for the end user. End user might work with more than one tool, and an end user might, in one scenario, simply want to, let's take a scenario of getting a model out from Archie and into Corso System Architect, for example. I don't know the security lies in that. I mean, I suppose it's like anything else, the issue of sharing data around security issues.
Question here from Jerome. I'll read it. He's asking, could we start somewhere or is somewhere already available? And he says some site where an ArchiMate template or ArchiMate templates are stored, but he also says ERP delivered business models are stored. Are there such templates, and if so, are they available or freely available at the moment?
Would take that, and perhaps the rest of the panelists can also help me out. I think in terms of ArchiMate templates, you have if you go into the Open Group site, you will go into publication, and you will see several ArchiMate and talk of publication, and some of them are actually case studies and ways to start using ArchiMate. If we are talking specifically about the standard itself, in terms of starting using the tools, we also have the register of the different tools that are are actually ArchiMate certified. So you can also find there the information to reach the different vendors and ask if you are looking for a specific implementation standard.
Okay, yeah. I'm just picking up on the security issue. We have another supplementary question asking, are these exchange formats password protected? Phil?
Yeah, well, in case anyone else wanted to answer that, very simple answer to that, no. There isn't any protection or encryption. It's just an open XML format. I think about, I mean, if you're using one of the tools in-house in your organization, do they support password protection already? Sure. I suppose it comes back to that issue of securing data internally and in-house.
Yeah, I think I'd just, it's Alan here, just to add to that. I mean, I do get involved in quite a lot of issues of dealing on the cloud. I think if you have the internal processes that allow you to ensure that everything you have is, if you're handling customer data or handling internal data with passwords and protection, then I think it's more the processes you put around it as opposed to something inherent in the Interchange. And if you're on the cloud, you obviously have to be more careful about how you handle data. So it's more of an internal process, I think.
Here from Enrique asking, does the Archie version for Mac support integration with Corso and BizDesign?
Well, if does it support the Exchange format, then yes, the Archie version for Mac has the same features as the Archie version for Windows and Linux.
Moving on.
Also, the version of BizDesign Architect that can run on the Mac can run in parallel, or it doesn't native on Mac, but so it of course will support the exchange of data from either Archie or from Corso. So.
Okay, thank you. Question from Sandeep. How is this different from EDI data model exchange?
I'm add a bit on this. EDI model exchange will, as I can recall, just exchange the semantic part, like the objects and the relations, but not only the graphical information, which is quite a big plus of this exchange format, I think, because the graphical models, the views that you make are really work, and it's good that you can exchange them in an open way between the tools.
Okay. I've got a question here from Zolt, but it looks like it may have already been answered within the Q&A, but I'll ask it anyway to the panel. And Zolt's asking, do you plan to work with Mega and do it to create an industry standard for e-exchange format, or have you already done this? Sonia?
Okay, I'm just explaining we are open to more vendors participation, and actually Mega, it's also a certified tool, and so one of our members, so we have been continually working with them. So at this moment, like Andrew just said, we are not aware if more vendors are actually being involved. However, the resources are there, it's an open standard, and there's all the resources page that we just show about how to use the standard, and if Mega or any other vendor can be interested, we are more than happy to work in collaboration, and also to start working not only in the usage of the standard, but also in the improvement and in the growing, because, for example, facing new standards, or having, like Andrew just explaining, the possibility to migrate part of the model, not the whole model. There are things like we are in the future plans, and if we have more vendors involved, then it would be even better for us.
Okay, this is the last question we have on the QA, and I think this is just a more detailed question about involvement. This is from Frederick. He's asking, does the group maintain and publish the contractual agreements for tool vendors who sign for the implementation of the conformant ArchiMate specification? Yeah.
Have a conformance requirement and a whole process and program for being ArchiMate certified for tools. So if you go into our site and you go into certification program and services and you go over ArchiMate certified tools, you will find all the processing there, or the conformance requirement, and all the different requisites that the different tool vendors should follow in order to be ArchiMate compliant. But there are different things in here. I mean, if you go into the process, you are a tool vendor and you want to have your tool certified, you follow the process and be compliant with the conformance requirement, and then the tool will be ArchiMate certified. And having implemented the Exchange file format is another step, because then if you implemented it, also you will be able to share information between tools. At this moment, there's no link between the two of them, even though, like Andrew explained it, in future plans is also to use the Exchange file format to test some conformance for being a certified tool.
Thank you for that. As I said, that's the last question on the queue. We're getting close to the end of our hour, so this is probably a good moment to end today's webinar. Sonia, do you have any final comments you'd like to make before I close today's event?
First of all, thank you very much for all the attendees for delivering this timing for us. I think, like we explained at the beginning, using open standards and exchanging information, it's really delivering value to the industry as a whole. And this group of people they have made an outstanding job putting together all this and delivering this standard we have just published. So we wanted to invite end users to submit their comments and suggestions for improvement to us. For example, the issue about security, it could be a good improvement in future versions, and also to invite again vendors to get involved with us in this effort.
That's great. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, panel, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And I will now end today's event. Thanks very much.